For years, silver has been the quiet sibling, the industrial workhorse lurking in gold's monetary shadow. But as of this year, that narrative has been obliterated. Silver hasn't just rallied, it has crushed every major asset class, ascending to become the third most valuable commodity on the planet. Yet, behind this spectacular price action, a far more consequential and strategic move just took place, one that most Western investors have utterly missed. China, the world's factory and now its most dominant commodities referee, has quietly but decisively stopped selling silver. This isn't a momentary pause or a logistical hiccup. It is a calculated geopolitical declaration, and to understand its magnitude, you must first see the separate roles gold and silver play in the grand redesign of global power. Gold's primary function in the 21st century is about restoring trust in a broken monetary system. It's the bedrock asset, the unprintable alternative to fiat currencies, teetering under unimaginable debt. China understands this perfectly. For decades, they have been building the architecture for a gold-backed financial alternative to the US dollar system. This is the purpose of the Shanghai Gold Exchange and the expanding Gold Corridor, a network for vaulting and settling gold across allied nations. China's very public, relentless accumulation of gold is a signal to the world. If you seek a monetary system outside the reach of Washington, sanctions, and the Federal Reserve, printing press, here is your foundation. They are constructing a platform where gold, stored within sovereign borders or in Shanghai, can be used as pristine collateral to secure loans for development. It's a direct challenge to dollar hegemony, built on the timeless credibility of gold. Silver, however, plays a completely different game. Its value is not about trust, it is about control. Control over the single most critical resource that makes the modern, digital, and green world function. Silver is not merely a precious metal, it is the indispensable industrial commodity. It is inside every solar panel, every electric vehicle, every data center server, every piece of advanced military electronics, and every satellite orbiting our planet. It possesses the highest electrical and thermal conductivity of any element, making it irreplaceable. And here is the crucial distinction from any other commodity. When the price of silver skyrockets, industries do not stop buying it. They cannot. There is no substitute. A solar panel manufacturer cannot decide to use aluminum instead. They must secure silver regardless of cost, or shut down their production lines. This inelastic demand profile is what makes silver uniquely powerful, and why, for decades, there has been a prevailing theory that its price, along with gold's, was actively suppressed and contained. Keeping it artificially cheap allowed the West's technological and industrial expansion to proceed at minimum cost. But that era of passive abundance is over. We are now entering a decade of structurally insatiable demand, driven by the global arms race in AI, automation, robotics, and renewable energy. And China, through decades of strategic planning, now commands the choke points. They dominate the refining and processing of not only silver, but nearly every critical material. Their recent move to impose strict export controls on silver, reclassifying it under dual-use rules for both civilian and military applications, is not a minor regulatory tweak. It is a masterclass in geopolitical chess, a quiet siege designed to grant Beijing ultimate leverage over the pace and price of global technological advancement. This story is far bigger than a commodity bull market. It is a central front in the US-China rivalry, with implications for every market and every investor, even those who have never owned a single ounce. This is the story of how control over a single element translates into control over the future itself. To grasp the seismic shift China just engineered, we must first understand how the world is supposed to discover the price of silver. That happens in two main markets, the COMEX in New York and the Shanghai Futures Exchange, or SFE. The COMEX is the Western financial hub, a paper market where futures contracts are traded and most positions are cash settled. Within its approved vaults, silver is categorized as either eligible, meaning stored but not for sale, or registered, which is available to deliver against a futures contract. Here lies the first fragility. The entire COMEX system currently holds only about 120 or 130 million ounces of registered silver. Global annual demand exceeds 1.2 billion ounces. The system works only because an astonishingly small fraction of contracts ever demand a physical delivery. It has a paper pyramid built on the assumption that most players will never ask for the actual metal. The Shanghai market operates on a fundamentally different principle. It is a physically settled market, deeply integrated with China's domestic industrial machine. Its price reflects the real-world cost to acquire and store deliverable metal inside China. For years, these two prices traded in tight alignment thanks to arbitrage traders who would buy cheap metal in one locale and sell it where it was expensive, thus keeping the global price unified. That link has now been severed. On December 24th, as Western markets dozed in a holiday lull, a stunning divergence appeared. Physical silver in Shanghai closed near $78 per ounce. Simultaneously, paper silver on the COMEX settled around $72. A $6 chasm had opened up, and it persisted. In a functioning market, arbitrageurs would have pounced, buying COMEX contracts, taking delivery, and shipping the metal to Shanghai for instant profit. The fact this did not happen, that a $6 premium could stand for hours during thin liquidity, is a deafening alarm bell. It signals that the physical silver required to close that gap is not available to move. The arbitrage is broken. Shanghai S price is screaming a truth that COMEX S paper price is desperately trying to ignore. Physical silver in the places where industry needs it is becoming scarce, and therefore more valuable. The East is forcing the West to reprice reality. This brings us to the heart of China's historical relationship with silver, a relationship that explains their current actions with perfect clarity. For centuries, from the 1500s through the early 1900s, China's economy was a silver economy. Taxes were paid in it, large transactions were settled by it, and its stability underpinned the entire imperial system. Silver was China's money. This history imprinted a critical lesson, one learned in the most painful way possible. In 1934, the United States passed the Silver Purchase Act, aggressively buying silver to support domestic mining interests. This sent the global price soaring, which triggered a catastrophic deflationary spiral in China. As silver's value rose, it was physically drained from the country to be sold abroad. The domestic money supply collapsed, prices plummeted, economic activity seized up, and China was forced to abandon the silver standard. The lesson was seared into national memory. If your economic vitality depends on a resource you do not control, your adversaries will weaponize it against you. China has not forgotten. Their entire 21st century strategy, from rare earths to lithium and now to silver, is the inverse of that 1930s trauma. It is about absolute control over the resources the modern world cannot function without. Their move on silver is a tactical masterpiece. By reclassifying it as a dual-use strategic material, they have not announced a ban, which would provoke immediate political retaliation. Instead, they have erected a bureaucratic gate. As of January 1st, 2026, exporting silver will require a government license issued under vague national security guidelines. In practice, this means the state gains total discretion over which foreign entities receive silver and in what quantities. They have moved from being the world's largest processor to being its strictest gatekeeper. The brilliance of this play is rooted in supply chain dominance. Most silver is not mined directly. Roughly 70–80% is a byproduct of mining copper, lead, and zinc. Even if the price of silver doubles, mine output does not automatically increase. You must mine more of everything else. This is inelastic supply. The ore that is mined then must be refined, and China controls a dominant share of global refining capacity. Even silver mined in Peru, Mexico, or Australia often passes through Chinese processing plants. Now, at the final point of export, Beijing can simply say, no, this is not theory. It is a playbook they have already executed with devastating effect on rare earth elements. A decade ago, China imposed similar export controls on these metals, critical for everything from EVs to fighter jets. Global prices soared, Western governments panicked, and they belatedly realized that rebuilding independent refining capacity takes not just billions of dollars, but a decade or more. China had won a strategic decade of dominance. They are now applying the same blueprint to a material far more ubiquitous than rare earths. The implications are profound and extend far beyond commodity traders. For the West, this creates a dual vulnerability. First, there's the direct industrial shock, securing guaranteed silver supply for its green energy. And tech sectors becomes a matter of national security, likely leading to frantic stockpiling and inflationary cost pressures. Second, and more insidiously, it grants China tremendous geopolitical leverage. Allocations of silver could be subtly tied to diplomatic alignments or concessions in other areas. It creates a new form of economic coercion, far more subtle than a tariff, but equally potent. For investors, this changes the foundational thesis for silver. It is no longer just a bet on monetary debasement or green energy demand. It is now a direct bet on the deepening fragmentation of the global economy, the de-risking and friend-shoring that policymakers discuss in abstract terms, made brutally concrete. The price discovery mechanism is breaking down, with the physically backed Eastern price pulling away from a financially engineered Western price. This divergence itself is a new source of volatility and potential profit. As we look to 2026, the question is not merely, will silver go higher? The deeper question is, who controls the gates to the future? China has just made a decisive move to control one of the most critical gates. The response from the West, whether it will be a unified strategy to secure alternative supplies or a disorganized scramble, will determine not only the price of an ancient metal, but the balance of power in the emerging technological age. The message from the East is clear. We learned our lesson from the Silver Purchase Act of 1934. Now it is your turn to learn. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more insights into the forces shaping our world.